11 miles. That is how close Robert Falcon Scott came to survival before he froze to death inside his tent. Beside his body lay a diary that revealed a heartbreaking secret. He had lost the greatest race on Earth. 2 men set out to be first to plant their flag at the South Pole. Robert Falcon Scott, a British naval officer chasing glory and science for the Empire. Roald Amundsen, a Norwegian who had spent his whole life mastering the ice. Only one could be first. Scott thought the prize was his, alone. But Amundsen had secretly been planning for the North Pole, until others got there first. He quietly turned his ship south and warned Scott with a single, chilling telegram. "I am going to the Antarctic too." In 1910, the race began for real. Scott sailed south aboard the Terra Nova, a battered old whaler. Amundsen followed in the Fram, a ship built to survive being crushed by the ice. 2 crews, 2 flags, 1 frozen finish line. They built their bases on opposite edges of the continent, but Amundsen took a daring gamble. He camped on the floating ice of the Bay of Whales 60 miles closer to the pole than Scott, betting his life that the ice would not break apart beneath him. Their methods could not have been more different, and this would decide everything. Amundsen trusted dogs and skis the ancient Arctic way. Scott gambled on Siberian ponies and clumsy motor sledges, machines never tested in such brutal cold. For Scott, disaster came quickly. His motor sledges broke down within days. His ponies sank chest-deep in the snow and had to be shot. Soon his exhausted men were dragging the heavy sledges themselves by hand. Amundsen ran like a machine. His dogs pulled the sledges at incredible speed, and the weakest were killed to feed the others, exactly as planned. His supply depots were marked for miles, so he could never get lost. Nothing was left to chance. In October 1911, Amundsen struck. 5 men, 4 sledges, and 52 dogs raced across the ice toward the pole, gliding over the snow on skis. Scott, still struggling with his dying ponies, set out weeks behind. On December 14, 1911, Amundsen reached the bottom of the world. He planted the flag of Norway at the South Pole, named his camp Polheim, and turned for home. He had won and not a single man had died. 34 days later, Scott and his 4 exhausted companions dragged themselves to the pole, but as they approached, they saw something black against the endless white. A tent, a foreign flag, and a letter. They were too late. Scott was shattered. "Great God," he wrote, "this is an awful place." The 5 men took one heartbreaking photograph together, their faces hollow with defeat, and began the 800-mile march back. Knowing the glory was gone, now began a desperate fight for their lives. Starving, frostbitten, and pulling their sledges into endless headwinds, the men weakened by the day. The Antarctic summer was ending and the killing cold was closing in. Edgar Evans was the first to fall. The strongest man in the team, he collapsed at the foot of a glacier, his mind broken by a bad fall and the cold. He died there in the snow, and then there were 4. Then Captain Oates, his feet rotting with frostbite, knew he was slowing the others down. One morning he stood and spoke the most famous last words in exploration. "I'm just going outside, and maybe sometime." He walked into the blizzard and was never seen again. Only 3 men were left now: Scott, the leader, Wilson, his loyal doctor, and young Bowers. A ferocious blizzard pinned them inside their tent, unable to move, just 11 miles from a depot full of food and fuel that would have saved their lives. For days the storm raged on, and Scott kept writing. His final entry was a plea to his nation. "For God's sake, look after our people." Then the diary fell silent. It was the 29th of March, 1912. 8 months later, a search party found the tent half buried in the snow. Inside lay the 3 frozen men, Scott's arm thrown over his friends. They collapsed the tent into a tomb, built a cairn of ice above it, and left them to the Antarctic forever. And here lies the strangest twist. Scott, who lost the race and his life, became a national hero, his noble death celebrated across the empire. Amundsen, who had won perfectly and survived, was quietly resented for being too cold and too professional. Amundsen never found peace in his triumph. 16 years later, he climbed aboard a flying boat to rescue a rival explorer lost in the Arctic. His plane vanished into the polar sky. His body was never found. So, who truly won? Amundsen reached the pole first and flawlessly, but Scott's tragic courage made him immortal. The winner is half forgotten. The loser became a legend. Whose side are you on? Subscribe for more rivalries that changed history.